Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. Now, the last video that I posted got a lot of comments and responses and questions. And I read those comments and I read those questions. And I reckoned that a part 2 was needed in order to make things even clearer. So when we're talking about the Incarnation Cross, last time I went into the nature of the angles, the left angle and the right angle, and how they're different. And I want to say a little bit more on that because of the questions that came up. The right angle is personal destiny cross, and you'll see that in the description, such as the right angle cross of laws, my own chart, for example. So it's right angle, it's personal destiny. They are self-absorbed in their own living of the life, and they're literally making karma, through their connections with people. And as they move, they deal with the consequences of that later. They're moving through their life in their own right angle, self-absorbed and inwardly directed orientation. Very different to the left angles. The left angles are there that are needing people in terms of the interrelationships with others. In that sense, they can't really stand on their own feet. They do need a support system. They do need those people in their lives that are going to be very important to them at a karmic level. So if you think of the right angles as making the karma and the left angles having to deal with it, and sometimes having to deal with karma from previous lives. So there is this necessity for the left angle in their outwardly orientated way to connect to certain people. Now, one of the questions I got was, what's the difference between the fourth line, which in the 4-6 as an example, or the 2-4, they are right angle. How can they be right angle, Richard, when the fourth line needs their network in order to externalize what they're here to externalize? Well, it's very different. You see, the fourth line is also the opportunist. And it is the opportunity for them in their personal destiny to make contact with this person or that person, to grow their network, to grow their influence. Whereas a fifth line cross will be there, they just turn up, and they save your neck and you go, thank you very much. Or they tell you some practical information that you didn't know before. And they don't want anything from it. They're just doing it because they're outwardly orientated. They can see, as a 1-3, they can see I'm doing it wrong. And they go, well, Richard, don't you think if you did that, it would be better? And I go, oh, thank you very much. It's a different thing. If you're thinking about the left angle crosses with the 6th line, then the 6th line, again, they're doing their thing, but they're doing their thing in their own authentic way. So they're here to be role models in the end. They have to go through a whole process to prepare. It's a long-term maturing process for the 6th line. But still, we get to see someone who is authentic. We get to see a role model. And they're not here to display themselves. They are them. It's very different. You get to see it. You get to see what it is for a human being to be a one-off and authentic in their own nature. I mean, that is the process of the 6th line. Very different from being involved in personal destiny. Again, certain people come in at certain times to open up their life or to help them become authentic in their process. So I hope that's made it a little bit clearer. When there were also questions regarding, what's this cross, and here's my cross, and here's my cross, and it's like, well, let's just start at the beginning. You've got an incarnation cross, and you're given with that incarnation cross a word, and it's a word that is appropriate for the cross and the framework of purpose for the life. But at the same time, it speaks to one of the 4 gates in the sun and the earth, of which the Incarnation Cross is comes from. So the gates are really important, and also where the gates are. So every single cross, every single incarnation cross has a personality sun, and that personality sun will be in one of the quarters of the wheel where all the gates are shown. Now, I talked about this on a YouTube video called Find Your Purpose, and I talked very much and focused in on this nature of the cross in terms of the purpose being fulfilled through mind, or through body, or through connections with others, or through transformation. So you can go and have a look at that one. It'll be in the descriptions below. But more than that, let's look closer at the gates. Let's take some examples from the comments that came. There were a lot of several migration crosses came in. You know, what does migration mean? Well, if you look at the gates in the cross, and if you look in your own chart, you'll see that you have to have the channel of community there. It's the 40 and the 37 gates. So that's the channel of community. So migration is shown in two different ways. We have 4 right angle crosses with the same name, and then we have 2 left angle crosses with the same name. So there are different variations depending on where the personality sun is. I hope that's clear. As an example, in migration, there will be the those people born on that cross that are there to build the community, and they build the community, and they're great at building community. You know, I've met several of them. They're really fantastic. They're really just, you know, what you need. They're down to earth. They get on with it. They're there for the community, and it's wonderful. But the first variation after a while goes, well, yeah, I built the community, but I don't really like the people in it anymore. You know, I want to get away from that. I want to migrate out of that. And the second variation of migration is about having to migrate. You know, the circumstances around you, the government control, or the land that you're on where things are changing, and you have to basically escape. So there are variations within the crosses. And there were also crosses of consciousness in the comments. So they always makes me laugh, crosses of consciousness. And I'll tell you a little tip here. I could say to you, I mean, they're right angle, okay? They're personal destiny, cross of consciousness. And they are indeed here to ask the questions about what it's all about. Why? Look at the gates. The 64th gate and the 63rd gate are there. And these gates aren't fully incarnated in the body as such. They're in the head center. They are, you know, if you understand human design, the personality crystal is outside of the body. It's hovering above in the head. And these are 2 of the gates that are hovering above in it. I could say a similar thing about migration in terms of asking questions, but migration, because they also have that in their cross, which is why I use this. But migration is very much about, you know, does the community work? You know, am I around the right people? Do I need to move, or whatever it is? It's much more concerned about the community. The right angle cross of consciousness, you know, asks those kinds of questions that are really looking to progress in the experience of being in a body, being a consciousness attached to a material form. And yeah, they're not particularly grounded. They're not supposed to be. They're here to kind of align or run on, depending on the type, their own rhythm, their own timing, and seeing the timings of things and seeing where progression can take place. So all these words that I'm using to describe the cross are coming from the gates, the 35th gate of progress and having the experience, the 5th gate of timing and the patterns of life, and the 64, thinking about things that have happened in the past and confused about it, or things in the future. Will we be okay? You know, what's the next move? What's the answer to that? So the cross can be described within the gates. There was also a cross of penetration who turned up, I think a 1-3 cross. What about my cross? Again, some of the names in the crosses are related to the qualities of the gates, and one gate in particular. I just mentioned an example of community in the channel, but here if we take the cross of penetration, we're talking about the penetrative clarity, the awareness in the 57th gate. And if you attach the 57th gate to the 20th gate in the channel of the brainwave, you have penetrating awareness in the now, the awareness in the spleen, speaking out or being alert, making some sound, making some comment, seeing really what the truth is in the now, based on the penetrating clarity of the 57. So basically, the more you know about the gates, the more you understand in terms of the qualities that are mentioned in human design and the interrelationships between the gates and the circuits and the components of human design, the better able you are to understand your incarnation cross. And having said all that, and knowing as we do that the sun and the earth provide 70% of the pattern of each one of us, it's still very important to understand that it's a generic. So that the incarnation cross, it'll give you hints in the word and you can go, okay, and I'll look at the gates and see what they are. But really it has to be translated in an analytical process based on what the design actually is, what all the life forces are, what the type is, and many other things, which is why incarnation cross analysis is something that is taught after the professional, the PTL1 professional training, when people already have a depth knowledge of the gate components that are in there. And then we understand, we are then taught about the movement of the cycles and how one cross comes out of another, and there's this incredible movement. We're incarnating the cross in a way ourselves. We're incarnating the wheel, each one of us, in our own particular way, according to the time and place of where we were born, through the crosses. And as I said last time, the astonishing thing is that when you are in your process of human design for long enough, and lots of things drop away, and you kind of emerge out of all that not self-density, the cross itself takes over. And that's not something to hurry into. That's just something to witness. You'll just realize it. You'll just realize it at some point. And then things get very magical, and the intensely personal way that most people regard their lives begins to lessen as you realize that you are actually part of the big game too. All right, if you want to know more about it, again, I'll point to the resources in the Global Incarnation book and in the audio series that I have from Ra on my website. And if you want to get your Ra talking about your own particular cross with your own profile, there is also an aspect on my website under audios, which enables you to type in your cross and choose the profile, and then you can hear the audio. So there are ways you can go to get the information. But more than that, just understand it's one part of, what this is all about, and to enjoy the process. Well, I hope that was helpful and cleared up some of the questions that were asked in the comments. If you've enjoyed this, please do share and like and subscribe. That would be very helpful. And I will see you again very soon with something completely different. Bye for now.